Talking about unique, it's time to bring in our unique friends from South County, Massachusetts, and that's Marcy and David. And once again, it is time for the Berkshire Edge on air. And of course, you can find the Berkshire Edge right at berkshireedge.com. It's a very easy find, and they're there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Well, they might not be there themselves, but they're there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The stories are. Good morning, Marcy. Good morning, David.
Good morning. We're hardly here this morning, I have to say. Sorry, but the Edge is here, and we will be ready in just a minute.
Okay.
Anyway, good morning. Happy New Year. I think we didn't talk to you last
No,
week.
no. It's
we had to take David's boys back to school, so
I explained that on the air, and people understand that.
Yes, I know. They're both in boarding school, and so it started up again. But anyway, here we are. So,
all right.
What is our first story?
Your first story is about school. The Eight-Town Regional School District Planning Board. It looks like they're going to receive a state grant to study the merger of the Berkshire Hills and Southern Berkshire School District. Hello? I think we've lost them. Let's see what happens here. I think when David joined on the phone, we lost them. And just sitting there doing nothing. So I guess we'll do what we always have to. Here, he's going to hang up now. Any moment now. Or just call back. I mean, why not? You know, I mean, could be worse things we have to do. Let's see if we get them back now. If they still think we're there.
Sorry, the phone is busy. Please leave a message. Thank you.
Start recording at the tone. When finished, press the pound key.
There you guys are.
I'm sorry. We disconnected you. Anyway, here we are.
Oh, so let's talk about that, though.
Yes.
What's interesting about this is they've received a state grant for the merger, and I'm not even sure if people in the Berkshire Hills and Southern Berkshire Regional School Districts want to merge.
No, they don't want to merge. I mean, it's, there's been this committee that's been the Eight-Town Regional School District Planning Board Committee that has been looking at the merger. I mean, they have to merge. The problem is that the student population has dropped. They have two different school districts that really don't have enough students each to keep going. And so there really seems to be no question but that they have to merge, but nobody wants to do it. It's bad for the students to stay separate because they don't have, they can't provide the resources in each school that will give the kids a good education. The buildings, they just, but it's very uncomfortable to merge because they're far away. It's going to
somebody is going to have to be in a long bus ride.
Right.
Yeah. Because it was a sprawling district.
Yeah.
The merged district would be,
it'll be up to 40 to 45 minutes each way for some kids to come. And there there are sort of local identities that are going to be sacrificed, and where is it going to be? Neither of them wants to go into the other's district, and yet would it make sense to build an entirely new building? So this has been going on now for a couple of years. And now they've gotten a state grant from the state's Division of Local Services Community Compact Program, which is a state program to provide financial support for municipalities and school districts that are exploring initiatives for efficiency, which includes regionalization.
People in this area will understand that many years ago, back in the 50s, each one of our towns had a grammar school and a high school. and Region 1 was formed, the first school district in the state of Connecticut, upon which every other school district that was formed later on is based on the formation of the Region 1 school district. And it was a question of home rule, and the way they solved that question was they had a high school that served the towns, but each town got to keep their grammar school.
Right.
And that still gave the towns home rule to control some of the education.
Local level. Right.
That's the way that they did it back then, and it does. It makes for high school students. It's almost a 40-minute ride to and from school.
Yes. Yeah. No, it's really. I think that's one of the things that they are now looking forward to.
Well, we went through that process a number of years ago too. When they built in South County, they built in Great Barrington. There were a number of the local neighborhood elementary schools, and they consolidated into one larger elementary school. And I think people have forgotten that actually they went through that process. They'd been through it before.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we have this school building in downtown Great Barrington that has been empty ever since the Monument Mountain
and Muddy Brook
consolidated,
was built. Right.
And they consolidated, Muddy Brook and is the elementary school, and then W.E.B. Du Bois School, which is the middle school, and then there's Monument Mountain High School. But they were all local. I mean, there's one, as I said, they were right down to some of the students used to go right downtown in Great Barrington, and the merchants in downtown Great Barrington. Of course, somebody once explained to me that it used to be wonderful because all the mothers came down to the downtown every day to pick up their kids, and they would shop. And now they don't come downtown anymore.
Well, you also go on with the story to talk about there's going to be a public meeting on January 21st.
Yes.
No, and that's going to be whether or not people are going to they're going to have to bring this to the community because eventually it's going to come to a vote.
Yeah.
And so we're having a big community meeting to talk about this process of kind of reorganizing how the elementary school students.
And this is going to be a Saturday morning, Saturday, January 21st, from 9 a.m. to noon. So it's going to be an educational visioning session.
Right.
So that
so-called.
I mean, I think it's going to be a fight.
Well, there's a saving money aspect of it. There's that aspect of it where you can't really operate the way it's operating, but home rule, boy, that's a big thing for people to give up.
Well,
yes, it is.
Yes, and I don't know even if it's so much home rule. I guess it is, but it's not like these districts like the people are so different that they're going to be governed by aliens. But it's I think it's the distances and it's the traditional loyalties. I mean, they have football teams.
Yeah.
There are slightly different characters. Other sports teams.
And it's also looking forward to some students are going to have a rather long bus ride.
Yeah,
that's I think what the issue is really.
But the advantage, of course, is that with more students, they can offer a greater variety of courses and a greater variety of AP courses. Now, some people are arguing that you could do this without, if we took advantage of technology and remote learning, you could offer all these courses to a greater number of students without their having to travel. But the other side of that argument is that, part of school is kids being together with their teacher, and remote learning, I mean, as we have learned during the pandemic, doesn't quite work the same way. So,
all I can say is Brexit. England pulled out, and look at the problems that's going on. But that's just a big example.
I don't think that's the same.
Well, no, but it shows similar things, that there are benefits to certain things, and then there are the other side of the thing where benefits don't outweigh the potential problems that would come if they don't do it. So it'll be interesting to follow and see how everybody can calm down and do the thing that's best for everybody. It's going to be
whatever that is.
Yeah,
I mean, it truly is not clear what that is. I mean, it's
Well, I think this is also a sign that the character of these rural communities is changing.
Yeah.
And has changed. And I think that's part of the resistance to and the difficulty of making this kind of change is that people have to recognize that the community is not exactly what it was.
Yeah.
It's not young families working in the local businesses and factories anymore. It's more, second homeowners, and there are just not that many students anymore as there used to be. So,
well, a big shakeup after the elections. A new district attorney in Berkshire County.
oh my goodness!
Right.
Yes, we do.
Yes, we do.
We have out with Andrea Harrington,
In
with Tim Shugrue.
Right. So there was already a little kerfuffle with Tim Shugrue that apparently he wanted to hire his wife for an important job in his office, and there was much discussion about that, and I think he abandoned that idea. So
Well,
it wasn't a good way to come in. It's not in this story, but we had a story last week.
Yeah, and Andrea Harrington has been a DA that to have a woman as the district attorney is shakes up people,
Yeah.
And Tim Shugrue has been a lawyer in the community for some time.
Well, you have to look at, even though politics be damned, not only do you have a woman that was attorney general, but you have a progressive woman who was attorney general. So even though politics shouldn't really matter, it did. It did big time in that election.
Well, I think the problem was, Andrea had some really terrific ideas, but I think that a lot of people were not enamored with her. I mean, she worked very hard and she did a very good job, but somehow, I don't know, I think that, there were always rumors that she was using this for her own, using the position for her own political purposes.
Ambitious.
Now, who isn't?
Yeah,
well, that's right.
So it was, it was kind of unfair. But at any rate, we have somebody who is better known in the community. I mean, she was a fantastic campaigner, I must say. That when she ran for office, she put together an amazing campaign.
Well, it's
and really campaigned hard and got money for her campaign and everything. But after one term, she was voted out. She lost the primary, the Democratic primary, to Tim Shugrue, and of course, he then won the general. So we'll see. He is experienced. 80% of Harrington's staff has agreed to continue to work in his administration, so there will be continuity and experience, which is good for somebody coming in. But it's not going to be. She was very progressive. One of the things that she was determined to do, which was very interesting, is that she was not going to spend the resources of the office on very small crimes. She was going to look for. She was going to focus on bigger crimes that were, that had greater impact to the community. But then there was a cry that she was soft on crime and that the crime rate was rising, and so he, of course, came in with a different perspective on law enforcement, which a lot of people felt more comfortable.
Well, I think she is the chief law enforcement officer as district attorney.
Yeah.
And I think those guys, the cops, they just didn't like a woman telling them what to do. That's what it is.
And a young, small woman.
Yeah. And smart.
Yeah.
All right, I want to move on to your next story because this is interesting. I love looking back at history, and I love looking back at, like in our area, when the big ice houses that used to be around here, and the big tourist trade, which still is here, but it is different. You've got a story, a reminiscence, and I like this about the snow trains. Skiers would come to the Berkshires from the cities. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh well, in fact, they used to come right through Connecticut.
Yeah.
Too, because we do have this rail line that used to be part of the New Haven line that runs from New York, that pulls off the shoreline and comes directly north to the Berkshires.
Right.
Still a freight operator. It was privately owned, but it used to be part of the New Haven New York, New Haven, and Hartford line.
And of course, they used to junction in Danbury, the trains from New York City itself would junction in Danbury and come up. So yeah, there was a lot of people that came up into our neck of the woods.
Well, I can remember taking that train from Pittsfield many years ago. So
yeah, but Gary Leveille. We have every other Monday. We have an article by Gary Leveille in our series called Then and Now, where he shows pictures of what something in the Berkshires looks like now compared with a historic picture. And so this time he is showing people crowding into Grand Central with their skis, coming up to the Berkshires to ski. And then he
actually has a picture of
his son, I think, his son Justin Leveille, who's the editor of something called Slush Snowboarding magazine. And he's standing with his snowboard at track 23 at Grand Central Terminal, which is exactly the same track that that this original picture was taken. So, and it looks exactly the same, except that there is no train. There's no train. There's no train, and there's no crowd. And he's there all by himself with his lone snowboard and no train and nothing on the signboard. So, but we used to have, now this young man, Justin Stan Leveille, he edits this magazine, but he's a native of Great Barrington, but he now lives in Southern California, where I don't know how he does snowboarding, but I guess we had a lot more snow in those days.
We certainly did.
Right.
That brings up something totally different. I want to go to your final column, though, that you talk about, and that's Woman on the Verge.
Right. This is another columnist that we have every Wednesday. She's doing a series called Women on the Verge, where she writes about all kinds of things, that interest her, but she's got a lively mind. And
this week she's writing about Rachel Maddow, who it turns out lives in Northampton, just over the mountains in Massachusetts.
In Northampton.
In Northampton, right. So she is, since she's on this side of the Connecticut River, it's considered Western Mass, even though...
No, we don't. We're further west. So, but she is talking about Rachel Maddow's latest podcast, where she's talking about the Great Sedition Trial of 1944 as the subject of her podcast called Ultra, and that Rachel Maddow it brings in so much history in everything she does that it's a real education to listen to her podcast. But the other point that she's making this time is that is how she talks so much about the Library of Congress, that she is a great fan of the Library of Congress. Most people don't know very much about the Library of Congress, but she's saying, she's just quoting Rachel over 8 episodes, and each time she describes the Library of Congress differently. I mean, she starts off in episode 1 just saying archival material comes from NBC News via our beloved...
And this is all radio we're talking about here.
Via our beloved Library of Congress, and by the time she gets to episode 8, she says archival radio material is from NBC News via a little operation called the Library of Congress, which you should maybe look into sometime. You will not be disappointed. So it's really, kind of a love letter to the Library of Congress, which is such an amazing resource, and most of us don't really know very much about it.
Well, that's the whole thing, and I think that's the foresight that our fathers had many, 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 many years ago. The founding fathers, and I'll say I'll also include women in that because, but it's the foresight that they had to plan and build something like that. It was just simply amazing because where are you without history and without history of also of the written word or spoken word even,
And to have one library that accumulates everything from our history. I mean, it's phenomenal. That and the Smithsonian. I mean, when you have these two institutions that is holding everything that has ever been of importance in the United States. It's amazing.
And Maddow's podcasts are being turned into another film.
Yeah, there are 2 films based on her podcast.
Yeah, Lorne Michaels and Ben Stiller, right?
Yeah, because she tells such interesting stories. So Lorne Michaels and Ben Stiller are turning her first podcast into a film, and Steven Spielberg and Tony Kushner are adapting this current one called Ultra about the the Great Sedition Trial of 1944, about which I know nothing and can't explain it to you. And I don't know that David can either, but we can all listen to Rachel Maddow's. Do we have time for one more?
No, we're out. We're absolutely out once again.
Okay.
Well, too bad.
Sorry.
Well, we can do it next week. We can put it on the top of the list for next week.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, guys. I want you to have a good week and
Thank you.
Yes, you too.
enjoy the non-winter weather.
Oh, I know. It's awful. I want winter.
Or ski area.
Yeah.
Oh well.
All right, guys. We'll speak to you next week.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. That is the Berkshire Edge on air. Of course, you find them at theberkshireedge.com.